Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. mybookie.ag.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Yes! It is the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News. Welcome to the revolution. An absolute reinvention of radio. Maybe you could say even a reinvention of the way you hear things. Maybe even a reinvention of the English language from time to time. It is the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio. We've got Steven Cerruti and Michelle Smallman producing, and Bubba Brendan Peregrine on the board. I am your host, Will Cain. You may have seen me from time to time on First Take. You might have heard me from time to time hanging out with our man Ryan Russillo over the past several months, but now it is me and it is you. And although I laugh and joke and pretend about the revolution, I will have to say this. It is an adventure. We have no idea where this will go, Cerruti. We have no idea what this show will end up being. It is like we are explorers in the 1800s shoving off in our ship in search of the great unknown. And all we know is whatever it is today is probably not what it will be a month from now.
We're pioneers in this new time slot. Excited about it.
We're pioneers in this new time slot. We're pioneers in this format. You know, I heard my man Stephen A. Smith giving me a wonderful introduction just a few minutes ago in his studio, talking about my lovely family, how hard it was for him to be nice to me, but that he could begrudgingly because he's met my mom, Mama Cain, as he refers to her. And I heard Stephen A.'s wonderful, huge introduction of the Stephen A. Smith Show that just went national from 1 to 3 earlier today. And Stephen A. said, it's me. I don't want any guests. If I have guests, it's because management told me. It's me. It's my microphone. It's my voice. It's my opinions. If you signed up for the Stephen A. Smith Show, you get Stephen A. Smith. And I understand. I understand what Stephen A.'s talking about. But here's what I would say about this show. It's about us. And we talked about this before the show. Whatever it is now won't be what it is a year from now. Whatever it is now won't be what it is a month from now. But when I kind of joke around about it being a revolution, in a way, it is. Because it will constantly be changing in and of itself. And it will be us. Not just Cerruti and Smallman and Bubba and me, but you. You listening. You are going to help shape this show, not just from segment to segment, not just from month to month, but from minute to minute. What do you want? What do you want to hear? What do you want to say? Because I'll make two promises to you today. And I'm going to get quickly to this because I want to talk to you about Baker Mayfield and whether or not I would want him as a first-round draft pick on my team. I want to get to you about whether or not the SEC, despite having two teams in the national championship, is actually a little bit overrated. And I want to get to why OU flinched, why Lincoln Riley's butt puckered up last night and he got conservative towards the end of the game. But here's the two promises I'm going to make to you. Number one, I'm always going to tell you the truth. Now, I know everybody says that. Everybody's going to tell you the truth. But I'm going to tell you the truth unconcerned with who it offends, unconcerned with being popular. If you've seen me at any time on First Take, maybe as I said with Ryan, sometimes I know that I can come off a little bit. I don't know. What do we call it? What's the word?
Arrogant?
Maybe. Smug?
Smug's another good one.
Unlikable? It's just not my highest priority. I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? That's my promise to you. I'm not going to sacrifice it for who it might offend. I'm not going to sacrifice it for who might like me. I'm not going to sacrifice it for a note from management saying, don't say this. I'm not going to sacrifice it because there's a company line or there's a group think or there's a way to stay safe in a crowd. I'm not going to sacrifice the truth for any of that. I'm going to tell you the truth as I see it. But I'll make you a second promise, and that is this. It's funny, when this show was announced and it was going to be launched, the Will Cain Show, was going to take this slot, the one where Bomani Jones used to broadcast, that it was going to be Russillo and Cain, and then it just became Cain. One of the things people said is, are you going to be the Will Cain from First Take, or are you going to be the Will Cain from the Russillo Show? Well, the truth is, it's the same. I'm the same guy. Either one. It's all part of the same person. I can be argumentative when I have a point and somebody wants to stand up, and I can be one of the dudes when we want to laugh and have fun. But the First Take Will, I guess, is going to promise you this. In addition to telling the truth, I'm not going to live in a glass house. I won't live in a glass house. Nothing I say will go unchecked. I don't intend to let anyone else say something that goes unchecked, and nothing I say will go unchecked. That means you telling me when you think I'm wrong at 888-729-3776. You, as I said, not just from segment to segment, but minute to minute, telling me what you want to hear, where I stepped out of bounds, telling me anything you want to tell me. 888-729-3776. It's you, Cerruti.
I don't think we'll have any problem with that. I like you, Will, but I don't think we agree on a lot of things.
Well, then it's you, Cerruti, who opens that mic up and tells me all the ways I'm wrong. It's you, Bubba, talking at length, as you often do on different subjects. Like right now, for example.
Right.
Just like that. And it's guests. It's Booger McFarland. It's Tim Hasselbeck. It's anyone that wants to step in and check anything I have to say. That's the two promises I'll make to you. I will tell the truth and nothing will go unchecked. That's what you will get on the Will Cain Show. Let's start off right away with what happened to Oklahoma last night in the College Football Championship semifinal game. What happened to Oklahoma? Oklahoma had that game. Oklahoma had a ticket to the national championship game. And then they flinched. And then they got scared. And then Lincoln Riley's tensed up. As I said, his butt puckered up. And he changed who he was. He took the ball out of the best player in college football's hands. He changed the way that team played, not just all season, but in the first half of that football game, and lost the game to Georgia. This is Ed Ashoff at ESPN College Football Reporter talking about what happened with Baker Mayfield. What did Baker Mayfield feel happened at the end of the game?
He was the one who's directing this offense. Whether they were running it or throwing it, everybody had their eyes on Baker. And then in overtime, he was almost an afterthought. And I'm standing there on the sideline talking to other reporters, and I'm like, Baker's not doing anything. They're not asking him to do anything. So I asked him about it after the game, and he said, those are the plays that are called. That's what Lincoln called, and that's what I'm going to do. And he had all the faith in his kicker, but he said he would have loved to have the ball more in his hands, especially on fourth down. The fourth down where they kicked that field goal in overtime, he was motioning to Lincoln Riley, patting his chest, saying, give me the ball. I can do this. And they went the safe route, which, hey, if you're playing for a national championship, I think you go for the safe route there. But he wanted it so bad.
Man, Lincoln Riley didn't give it to Baker Mayfield. He didn't call Baker Mayfield's number. Instead, when it was 3rd and 3 and you needed the first down to seal the game, to win the game, they gave the ball to a guy who I think had carried the ball 3 times this season, a wide receiver, Smallwood.
I'm always confused as to why us sitting on a couch at home can acknowledge that there are some bad play calling going on in a game when it's his professional job to be a play caller. But why are you and I, Will, at home going, that's a bad call? That's a bad call.
Did you watch?
Do you think in the moment he knows that? Like,
did you watch the feed last night on ESPN with all the coaches talking?
A little bit.
Okay. There was a moment. It was, I think, right before halftime. Former Wisconsin, former Arkansas coach Bert Bielema said he and Patterson were the only 2 defensive guys in the room. Everybody else, Dana Holgerson, Major Applewhite, Larry Fedora, Dino Babers, were all offensive guys. He said, can I ask all the offensive guys a question? How come after you rip off like 70 and 80-yard runs, you seemingly end up passing it 3 times right after that? It seems to me like the run's working. I don't get it. And he was met with like dead silence. Not one of them answered his question. I mean, it's not just fans, Cerruti, is the point. It's just sometimes opposing coaches are going, this is working for them. Why are they changing it up? Listen, this is what was working for Oklahoma. First half, 6 drives, 5 of them scored, 4 of them produced touchdowns. I'm talking about drives of 80, 75, 69, 90 yards. In the second half, 8 drives, 6 of them ended in punts. And one of those two that didn't end in a punt ended in an interception. Lincoln Riley ran out of script. He changed who he was. He changed the thing that was working for them so well in the first half. The only question is why? Why? You've got a 17-point lead. Something is working. As Bielema asked, why change it? Let's ask Tim Hasselbeck that a little bit later. Why does a coach, what happens when the script runs out? Why do you change who you are? Let's also talk about what's going on with the SEC. It's not going to be popular, but here's the deal. You got two SEC teams in the national championship game, but you can't escape the fact that the SEC's bowl record was not good. And bottom line, I don't understand this whole we root for conferences thing, but bottom line, it's a little bit overrated. It really honestly is. It's top heavy, but it's overrated. It's Will Cain on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News.
Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. Mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
Getting a lot of feedback, some professional advice from the highest of talents here.
Criticism?
Nope. Good
it's all
feedback.
Positive.
No, just advice. Like, don't look at Twitter.
You're already failing that one.
I know. I have not looked, and I'm not going to for a long time.
No, I disagree. I've known you. How long we work together? A few months now?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Twitter is such a barometer of where you're at on the show that day. If too many people are crushing you, it totally affects your mood.
Okay, first of all, that makes me look way more vulnerable than I want to appear.
Hey, you said we were going to be real on this show. I'm just telling it like it is.
But God's honest truth. I haven't opened it. Don't intend to. You can call me. How about that? If you have a problem with me or anything that I have to say, you just call me. 888-729-3776. I'm not going to be looking at Twitter for a while. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests, which should include Tim Hasselbeck in just a little bit on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Hey, by the way, we just did it on the TV side. We just did this. Jordan Spieth playing with the golf simulator, all his boys in his basement, hits a hole-in-one, goes bananas. It's in the hole, Caddyshack references. And I got to thinking about this. Jordan Spieth, for me, top 5, like, sports man crush. Like, I wish I was friends with him. And I can say that safely in that top 5 with Jordan Spieth would be Tony Romo, of course. We all know
Obviously,
right, small man?
Ultimate man crush.
Naturally. You love him.
And Kevin De Bruyne. And only a few will understand that one.
I was going to say, that's a across the pond guy. He follows you on Twitter, right? For those of you who don't know who that is, he plays for Manchester City. Will's a big soccer guy now.
Now? Yeah, it's true. It's
you relate to the bandwagon.
It's not bandwagon. It's child-driven. It's kid-driven. All right, so what happened last night with Oklahoma? Here's the thing. There was this fascinating moment. I asked you guys all this a minute ago. You watched the coach's feed. Bubba, you watched the coach's feed?
Yes, the film room on ESPN News, yep.
Yes, Gary Patterson.
Patterson was the star.
Breakout star. Gary Patterson, future in television. Future Monday Night Countdown host? Future Monday Night Football host? Might be a job opening from what I hear. Boy, he was the star. And Patterson was offering up nuggets of deep advice all the way through that. Dana Holgerson, also really good. One guy coming from the defensive side, one guy coming from the offensive side. But there was a moment when Patterson said last night, Lincoln Riley is still in his script. Meaning they've been prepping for this game for a month. As had Georgia, as had Alabama, as had Clemson. Had a month to really nail down the script and how they wanted to come out, what the first 15, first 20, first 25 calls might be in that game. And whatever that script was for Oklahoma to start that game, I mean, it was gold. It was a New York Times selling bestseller. It was perfection. That script that Lincoln Riley was working off of could do no wrong. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. This is what that script produced. I'm just going to run through this quickly for you. First drive, 6 plays, 80 yards, touchdown. Second drive, 6 plays, 75 yards, touchdown. Third drive, 5 plays, 69 yards, touchdown. 4th drive, 11 plays, 54 yards, touchdown. And 5th drive, 10 plays, 90 yards, touchdown. Actually, that 4th one, it resulted in a field goal. It's the one stop Georgia had in that first half. I mean, Baker Mayfield was marching through the Georgia defense. More than that, Rodney Anderson, who had something like 100 yards in the first quarter, was marching through the Georgia defense. And Patterson said, at some point as they approached halftime, Riley hasn't even gotten through his script yet. Like he might have recycled a few plays. He still has things he can get to. But obviously something happened. And we have to give credit to Georgia. Georgia adjusted. Lincoln Riley didn't. In the first half, Cerruti, I said Lincoln Riley is completely outclassing Kirby Smart. In the second half, it was completely the opposite.
So for you, this is all on Lincoln Riley and not on Baker Mayfield. Like you didn't think that they figured him out in the second half.
I don't. And I know that Mike Golick this morning said something about that on Golick and Wingo. He felt like Georgia adjusted, Baker did not.
They were making Baker Mayfield throw into tighter windows. Something, let's just say it, you're not used to doing in the Big 12. Okay, that's just the truth.
They are very large windows in the Big 12.
There are bigger windows, and when the windows get smaller, and I even tweeted that out last night, when the windows got smaller, he got worse. And people are saying, well, that happens to everybody. Well, no, it doesn't. Yeah. Better quarterbacks throw better in tighter windows. I mean, that's why you end up getting better quarterbacks that go to the next level or are playing in the next level. And you found that out about Baker Mayfield, or at least you saw it last night. When he had the chances to make the tight throws, he was off.
I don't think so, Cerruti. I mean, I don't put this on Baker Mayfield.
I love Baker. I wanted Oklahoma to win because I want to see him play as much as possible. That game last night made me really nervous about his future in the NFL because I feel like he was figured out at halftime on a simple scheme adjustment by Georgia and Kirby Smart. And I saw a bunch of people saying he's still going high, he's still going to go high in the draft because he has so much promise, and everyone's enamored by the leg stuff. That would bug me if I was a fan of a team that drafted him as their quarterback in the first round.
Okay, fine, and we should get to that. We should talk about whether or not Baker Mayfield is worthy of a high draft pick, a first-round draft pick. But you can't deny that Baker Mayfield is, I don't know, what, a top 10 college football player of all time? I mean, you're looking at a guy, I don't know, Vince Young, Bo Jackson. It doesn't take long before you get to the name Baker Mayfield. And I'm sure that the windows got tighter in the second half. I'm sure that Georgia adjusted. But what I saw in the second half was a coach who neglected to put the ball in his playmakers' hands, in Baker Mayfield's hands, taking shots down the field. Everything was a reverse. Everything was a screen. Everything was a short pass. By the way, have you ever, like, for your favorite team, had them call reverse and be like, sweet, I'm so excited about that reverse?
Yeah, it's one of those plays where like either it works and it's awesome and you're like, why don't we call more of those plays? Or they call it on like 3rd and 3 and it gets blown up in the backfield and you're like, how much of an idiot did you have to be to call a reverse on 3rd down?
I never feel like, why don't we call that play more? I feel like when it works, you're like, sigh of relief, thank God.
Yeah, that's the play that everybody runs in Madden.
The Cowboys do it frequently.
They do, you're right, Bubba.
And it's a little too much.
It's a little too much because it doesn't feel like the success ratio is real high.
Williams running around there. Come on.
It is always Terrence Williams, too. No, man, I think Lincoln Riley took it out of Baker Mayfield's hands. I think it's like Ed Ashcroft said, this should have been in Baker's hands all the way towards the end. In the same way that Vince Young had the ball against USC in 2005, you keep that ball in his hands, allow him to make the play or not make the play. Don't get tricky and try to call reverses and sweeps and options. No. Lincoln Riley flinched. That's the difference in this game. That's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE network. So talking about that script, talking about what Gary Patterson said about how much script Lincoln Riley had when he ran out, what happened. I want to talk to Tim Hasselbeck about that. He's used to that. He's done that in NFL huddles. He's done it at college huddles. What happens when that script runs out? That script runs out. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Attention shoppers, clean up on aisle 14. Clean up on aisle 14. Someone dropped a jar of pickles. Pickles. Kosher pickles.
Beatboxing at a big box store. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
A red minivan has the lights on in the parking lot.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Geico.
888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. That is our telephone number. It is the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, ESPN News, and the ESPN app. So what's up, Ryan? You got to get back into work. This is Ryan in South Dakota, right?
Yeah, this is me.
You only got a second. What do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I work in the mortgage industry.
Okay. Yeah, I heard you had like a few seconds off your smoke break and you wanted to get at me real quick. Is that right?
Well, I got in the car and I could have swore I heard you say that Baker Mayfield is a top 10 all-time college player. And I was just wondering if you're okay. Like, did you fall and hit your head? Like, did you fall down the steps yesterday, or what had happened?
No, I mean,
you can't possibly believe that.
All right, who's your top 10? Who pushes him out?
I don't have that in front of me here, but it's Baker. I'm a fan of Oklahoma, and I wouldn't put Baker Mayfield in there.
Well, I hate Oklahoma.
He's
I'm
not
a Texas Longhorn fan, and I know what I'm seeing.
I don't even know why I'm wasting my time talking to you then.
44 touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year, 70% completion. Last year, 70% completion, 40 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Baker Mayfield has walked on to two separate programs. Not only did he win the job, not only did he win a scholarship, he won for both of those programs. Now,
in the Big 12, which is largely garbage defense, you know that.
Well, I mean, I did watch a game yesterday where the Big 12 put up 500 yards and 45 points on the vaunted SEC and the vaunted Georgia defense. I mean, one of the things that we consistently, I think, have overhyped is look, I'm not going to tell you Big 12 defenses are the greatest. Obviously, we saw that yesterday as Georgia ran wild over them. But apparently, when a Big 12 offense runs into an SEC defense, not good things happen to the SEC defense. I mean, here's the thing. I appreciate the call, Ryan. Get back to pushing those mortgages. I think if you say he's not top 10, you got to tell me who is. I mean, Vince Young, better. Bo Jackson, better. There's more. Tebow's a great college quarterback. Tebow's on that list. There are things that influence it beyond just did you become a great pro prospect. Tim Hasselbeck's on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Tim, is Baker Mayfield a great pro prospect?
I think, yeah. I mean, if you consider it, look, I would consider anybody that goes in the first 2 rounds, which means, you're one of the best, roughly 60 or so prospects, then I would consider you a great pro prospect.
So he should go.
That's fair. I mean, this year, by the way, real quick, it's good to see you making friends right away.
Well, I noticed that you're not here, by the way, which I'm trying not to be offended by the fact that when Ryan was here, you were here in person. When I'm here by myself, you call in.
It was a Boston thing.
Okay, great.
But I think that if you are going to be drafted in the first 2 rounds, I think that you would have to be considered a great pro prospect.
Mike Golick said this morning on Golick and Wingo that what happened last night was that Georgia adjusted. The windows got tighter, and Mayfield was used to throwing the ball into big, wide, Big 12, wide open windows. Is that what you saw last night? Is he having trouble throwing it into tight windows?
Here's what I think he does. And I want to be clear, I'm not comparing the two guys because I certainly don't want to have my opinion of Mayfield out there without having me watch the coach's film on his games. But here's my initial feeling on Mayfield going into watching him. I think that he plays better in structure than Johnny Manziel did. I think that he makes some of the same mistakes by turning stuff down in order to go create something else, like Johnny Manziel did, which was one of the criticisms I had of him. One of my sayings that I think you're a big fan of, Will, is you can't go broke taking a profit. And guys play in the NFL a long time understanding that. Go check out Alex Smith. You don't pass up what's behind door number 1 in hopes of there being something better in door number 2. And I think being able to coach somebody into listen, you got to take that one right in front of you. Take that one right. The one behind it is going to open itself up after you throw the short one a number of times to get guys to come in. I think that's how you've got to coach Mayfield up a little bit. That would be that's my initial assessment of him before really, really watching him.
I don't want to push you into something you haven't done yet. I know you said you haven't watched all the film on Mayfield, and I assume that it's the same for Rosen and Darnold and Allen as well. Mm-hmm. Where would you put him, though? Do you have that yet? Would you take him above any of those three guys that have been talked about for a year?
Well, here's what I would say. Part of what happens right now is that, the buzz on these guys is coming from people, that have information of where somebody's going to be drafted. I mean, we all know Josh Rosen is going to be an early first-round pick, if not the number one overall pick. And, the information out there on where these guys are and, hey, it could be four guys in the first round, that's not coming out of nowhere. And so there's obviously people that feel that way about him. I guess I would say this about Mayfield. The things that would have been held against him in the past that probably would have prevented him from being a first-round draft pick, I think some of those concerns have gone away over time because of quarterbacks having success that, aren't built like Josh Rosen and Carson Palmer. There have been other guys that have had success. And so because of that, I think that Mayfield's playmaking ability and his competitive nature is going to serve him well in the process.
I'm almost out of time with you because I let that guy yell at me about Baker Mayfield when he's a top 10 college football player of all time. I wanted to ask you about scripting. Can you do it in 1 minute? Gary Patterson said last night Lincoln Riley had an awesome script that he hadn't even run through by the end of the first half. But obviously his script ran out in the second half. How does the script work, Tim? I mean,
well, usually you script plays because you go into it knowing, hey, look, these are the 15 plays I want to get all called because I know, or at least I feel like I'm going to have a lot of success with them. And so, it was a Bill Walsh thing going back that far where you would script your openers, and ultimately what happens is whether it's the formation package, the personnel grouping that you're running, the types of plays you're calling on third down in medium, maybe you're expecting man in that environment. Well, the other team doesn't just sit there and just continue to just call off of their call sheet defensively. What they do is, they say, okay, listen, they've been in some type of bunch grouping every time we've been, in 3rd and 5 or less. So let's stop playing man here and let's call some zone pressures or whatever it may be. And so, I think that, that happens in every game, not just the Rose Bowl.
Right. All right, will you come in and see me, or is that over now? Is our relationship strictly over the phone now?
I definitely come in and see you.
Okay.
Your time change. I don't know if it's because you're trying to cater to that central time zone fan base that you carry with you.
Middle America, right.
Was that it?
Some of my people, which includes you, by the way. Now you're not Boston anymore, buddy. You're Tennessee.
Oh, I know.
So
hey, I'm the South. I'm not the deep South like you, but I'm the South. I'm still trying to figure out what you are, though. You're like Ivy League South.
Quit talking about that. You called me Connecticut one too many times. I'm small town Texas, Tim.
Yeah,
I'm about to cut you off the Shell Pennzoil Performance line.
I'll be in next week. Sir.
All right, see you, man. Thanks. Okay, so listen. I call earlier, Ryan in South Dakota brought up the Big 12. Here's the deal. The Big 12 right now is getting a bad rap. And the bottom line is the SEC is getting blown up a little bit more than it should. These two conferences' reputations aren't exactly, what they're built up to be. Let's get into that on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, you can listen to all 3 hours of the show on your phone on the ESPN app. What do you go by? Raymond? What do you got, Ray, in Oklahoma?
I go by Raymond.
Raymond.
I go by Raymond. Yes, sir.
What is up?
What is up, man? I heard that caller came on before you talked to Tim Hasselbeck saying that Baker Mayfield not a top 10 quarterback. And remember, and he said that he lives in Oklahoma. You tell that guy he shouldn't disrespect Oklahoma like that. You live out here and you're not going to represent the OU, the Krista. The one thing I wanted to tell you, now, that was a tremendous game last night.
Hold on now, Raymond. Let's just correct the record as we go, okay? Ryan was from South Dakota, and he said that Baker Mayfield wasn't a top 10 college football player all time, which I said that I think if you start putting a list of top 10 college football players of all time together, Baker Mayfield's name is likely to be in there. I don't have my list right now. But
he's in that category with Tim Tebow.
Yes.
He's definitely in that category with what's his name from Texas Longhorn, Vince Young, Matt Leinart. He's in that category because he's a playmaker. He makes plays.
I agree, Raymond. Is that what you got? Defend your boy?
Yeah, that's what I got.
All right. Okay, thanks for the call, Raymond. You were from Oklahoma. I do think you have a vested interest in that. But there was something else that caller said. He said, Baker Mayfield's done what he's done against trash Big 12 defenses. But that overlooks the fact that last night, Oklahoma put up over 500 yards on a vaunted SEC defense. Oklahoma put up 531 yards and 48 points on Georgia. So you watch that game, and as I'm watching it, you got to give Georgia a ton of credit. And sometimes when you have these conversations, I think it can come off like, what about Georgia? There was 2 teams on the field. Georgia made adjustments. Georgia absolutely ran the ball down Oklahoma's throat, and it's true. I mean, this is, how disheartening is this? Sony Michel, 75-yard run for a touchdown. Nick Chubb, 50-yard run for a touchdown. Sony Michel, 38-yard run for a touchdown. Sony Michel, 27-yard run for a touchdown. We're not talking about, Chubb did have a 2-yard run as well, but we're talking about long touchdown runs.
Oftentimes untouched.
Oftentimes looking around like, is anybody gonna come get me?
Like, Will, you might have been able to get 100 yards last night against that defense.
You ever run a 40?
We were talking about it this morning, actually. The last time that you ran a 40. I would be embarrassed to know what my 40 was today.
Do you know what your 40 was at your peak?
Yeah, oh yeah.
What was it?
I was 4.7, high 4.7s. I was fast.
Is that qualify as fast?
I mean, for a white dude, yeah, I think it's pretty fast. For a white dude who wasn't that good at football.
Athletes,
yeah.
That's pretty good.
What's yours, Bubba? Have you ever been timing 40?
I have no idea. We did something on Mike and Mike a few years ago where we did a staff combine, and we didn't have enough room to run a 40, so we ran like a 30, and it was not good. It was not good.
I did it in high school. I got a 4.8, which...
That's fast. That's good.
A little slow.
I'm not fast. There's no
Well, you're
way.
not doing a lot of running in the pool when you're a water polo player.
Correct. Yeah, man. Georgia was just running all over Oklahoma. But, it's on the other side of the equation. Oklahoma was moving the ball, obviously more so in the first half, but moving the ball all over Georgia. And so we do this thing where we talk about the Big 12 is awful. The Big 12 can't play defense. The Big 12 has these fake high-powered offenses because they're playing these terrible defenses. And going into last night, or yesterday afternoon, the Big 12 was 5-2 in their bowl games. And the SEC was 2-5. We spend all this time talking about the SEC is a cut above. The SEC is all better. And I'm not doing the SEC troll thing, which I think some guys like to do. Ryan and I used to talk about it from time to time. I'm not doing the contrarian, the SEC is, but I guess in a way, I do think the SEC is a little overrated. I'm not taking away from Georgia and Oklahoma. Georgia and Alabama. Those 2 teams are awesome. Those 2 teams deserve to be there. But after those two teams, you got a heck of a drop-off. They end up 4-5. They've guaranteed themselves a losing record, the SEC, because, of course, they're going to play each other in the national championship game. So the record will end up 5-6. And you can say, what do bowl games show? What does that influence on which conference is the best? But I think as I watched Oklahoma march all over Georgia last night, I did think maybe Big 12 offenses are better than they're getting credit for. And maybe SEC defenses, outside of Alabama, aren't all they're cracked up to be. 2-5 versus 5-2. That's what it was going in. By the way, Pac-12, you deserve all the hate you're getting. You're 1-7 in the bowls. Booger McFarland's going to get a chance to take a shot at what I just said. I'm sure he'll have some disagreement. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. mybookie.ag.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Why do SEC fans all root for each other? I mean, this violates one of the central tenets of sports fandom. This makes no sense. Let's get into that, but I guess I caused a little bit of a controversy when I said Baker Mayfield's a top 10 college football player of all time. Is this crazy? Just quickly around the horn. Is that crazy, Cerruti?
To root for your own conference?
No. Baker Mayfield being a top 10 college football player of all time.
I think you're insane.
Insane. Bubba?
Yes, crazy.
Smallman?
Not crazy at all.
Not crazy.
Mm-mm.
Thank you, Smallman.
You're welcome.
I did just fire it off, because it's a nice round number. 10.
What is she talking? We were just in here naming it. What do you mean it's not crazy?
No, it actually is. I felt like someone had to have your
back. You just wanted to have my back today?
Yeah, just trying to be nice. Supportive on your first day.
Well, I don't care what you guys say. It's not crazy. I made a list. I got a list. Andre, Mississippi, I heard you have a list. Andre.
What's going on, big guy?
What's up? You think this is crazy?
I've been listening to your show. I got a lot of disagreements because there's no way you can tell me that Baker Mayfield in the top 10. Maybe the top 20, but not the top 10. I mean, you got when you name off Herschel Walker,
okay,
Barry Sanders,
okay, that's
Bo
2.
Jackson,
3.
Okay, you could even throw in. I would take Jason White before we go over.
That is bananas.
Baker Mayfield.
Okay, nah, that's bananas, Andre. That's not sane. That's insane. I'm saying you're insane, not Jason White.
But you mean to tell me that they play defense in the Big 12? I don't see nobody in the Big 12 ever make it in the NFL. You gonna throw a Brandon Wheaton?
What are you talking about? Quarterbacks in the Big 12 that don't make it in the NFL? Is that what you said?
Well, you telling me that they play defense in the Big 12? That they do not play.
I did not say that. I did not say
that.
I did not say the Big 12 plays great defense. I would not say that the day after they give up over 300 yards in rushing to Georgia. What I said is the SEC might not be all it's cracked up to be on those defenses after Oklahoma goes and puts 500 and some odd yards on them and 48 points. It may just be that the Big 12 offenses are incredible.
Well, you got to look at the SEC. The SEC offense sucks. You might have one or maybe two teams in the whole conference that throw for over 300 yards. The rest of them, the SEC, sucks on offense. Just look at the numbers. That's why it's so many coaching changes.
No, I think
it's maybe 6 or 7 coaching changes in the SEC. So them numbers on the defense, I don't even agree with all them numbers because I know outside of South Missouri, the rest of them don't even throw the ball too much.
And Missouri got. And what happened to Missouri? And what happened to Missouri when they ran into the Big 12? Buzzsawed by Texas.
They gave up 45 points to a Division II school early in the season. They suck.
All right.
So I think
Andre.
all these numbers in school is Alabama probably will win will win the national championship because there's no way that Georgia is going to gain. I don't even think they're going to gain 100 yards on offense between those two running backs.
All right, thanks for the call, Andre. Cerruti, you said that. What happens if this is a low-scoring affair in this national championship game? What does that tell us about the SEC?
I don't understand why the SEC gets away with having bad offense, but it's like somehow better football. Where, yeah, the Big 12 defense isn't great, but I would say that SEC offense and Big 12 defense are pretty bad together. So why do we criticize one so much more than the other? And if it's a low-scoring national title game, that people don't want to watch that. People don't want to watch a 13-10 game. People want to see offense, and I think that's just going to be a bummer.
I think the country wanted Oklahoma versus Alabama.
They wanted Baker Mayfield versus Alabama.
They wanted that offense against that defense.
And these might be the two best teams in the country, but it's not entertaining football.
The thing is, see, Georgia is the problem. But Georgia deserves to be the problem. I'm not sitting here saying Georgia doesn't deserve to be in the national championship game. They beat Oklahoma. They won that game. They deserve to be there. And they have been consistently all season long one of the best teams in the country. But you're right. I mean, the bottom line is people, and Smallman said this earlier, she has Alabama fatigue. But people can have Alabama fatigue, but still tune in. People have Patriots fatigue, but they watch. People have Cowboys fatigue, even though I understand very well the Dallas Cowboys are not some preeminent product on the field lately. They're still a marquee brand who gets plenty of national television play, and people get tired of it, but they still watch. Just because you're tired of something doesn't mean you don't watch. But Georgia, Alabama doesn't feel like two titans meeting in the national championship game, even though it legitimately is. The national championship game feels like it should be two schools we're not used to seeing play each other, two contrasting styles, two sides of a debate that will be resolved. That's what Oklahoma, Alabama represented. Offense versus defense, Big 12 versus SEC. It represented something to give us answers. Georgia versus Alabama feels like a game on October 3rd in the middle of your conference slate. It doesn't feel like a marquee national championship game. Okay, wait. Here's this. So Andre, what did Andre give me? He gave me Herschel Walker, Barry Sanders. Who else did he say? That's it. Oh, Jason
White.
Forget that.
That's insane.
I think he gave 3 people and then moved on to something else.
He said he's not top 10, gave me 3, one of which was Jason White.
You might have a case for him being a top 10 quarterback in college football history. Player, there's no way.
Okay. Humor me then, okay? Because during the commercial break, I did try to see. Let's just see, okay? Top 10 college football players of all time. Vince Young, in no particular order. Vince Young, Tim Tebow, Bo Jackson, Archie Griffin, Herschel Walker, Barry Sanders, Charles Woodson, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel. What is that? Is that 10?
Close.
As a Texas fan, I could say Ricky Williams, probably, and or Earl Campbell, one or the other. I'll discount it for my fandom, one or the other. The point is, I didn't read you more than, I think, 11 names right there.
Mike Vick, better college quarterback, get better college player.
Vick's a good name. And I'm not doing the old guys, right? Can we just leave Red Grange out of this?
Yeah, Roger Staubach, sorry. All apologies to you. I'm sure you had a great career. I didn't see any of it, but
it's not insane is the point. Some of these are debatable. Mayfield versus Manziel, debatable. Mayfield versus Woodson, debatable. It's just simply by the virtue of quarterbacks having more impact on a game than defensive back. By the way, Minkah Fitzpatrick, amazing. Alabama defensive back, stud. That right there is a top 5 pick. It's not insane to say Baker Mayfield is a top 10 college football player of all time. We just read 11 names. I mean, so at most, you're at 11, 12 names before you go, yeah, Mayfield. See? What sounds crazy isn't crazy. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620. So coming up, I saw Booger say this, saw him tweet it. Booger McFarland thinks the playoffs should never go to 8 teams. He likes it at 4. He likes the subjectivity. Talk about insane. That's not just insane. That is all the things people say I am. Arrogant and insane. That's what Booger's position is on the college football playoffs. And I'm going to tell him. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. Mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776 is our phone number. Give me a call at any time. Don't let anything go unchecked. Like I said, man, no glass houses here. You don't like what I have to say? You disagree with what I have to say? You have a voice too. Do you have a telephone? Press the numbers on it. Give me a call. 888-729-3776. That's what I do when I see something I disagree with. Like right now. With my friend, ESPN college football analyst Booger McFarland on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Booger, what's up?
Will, my man, congrats on the debut of the show. What's happening?
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it, man. What's happening is you. Okay, I don't have we have his tweet, Cerruti. We have his exact tweet pulled up. Booger, this is the most self-indulgent, self-justifying, all the things people say about me, right? Arrogant, insane, all that. This tweet that you put up last night about the playoffs, the college football playoffs, it's all those things. Where is it? I've got it set up. Here it is. I hope the playoff never expands, you tweeted. It should be hard, and 4 is subjective, and I like it. Isn't subjective the whole point of sports, to get away from subjectivism, to like play the game, let it happen, and see what happens on the field?
Well, Will, I think we have to look at college football as a single entity, because too many times we want all sports to be equal. We want the NFL playoffs to look like the college playoffs, to look like March Madness, to look like all things that way we can quantify everything. College football is a traditional sport. We love college football. We live and die with college football. I think it's the only sport we live and die by. With that being said, it's going to be different. And I think the fact that we have 5 Power 5 conferences, the fact that we only take 4 in the playoff makes it hard. That means somebody's going to get left out every year. And you're right, choosing 4 is subjective, because everybody has a different definition of what best is, because what's best for me may be not best for you. And I like the fact that it's 4. I thought the committee got it right. I thought the 4 best teams win the playoffs. And everybody's going to be in an uproar today because you have an all-SEC final. I understand it, because the SEC has been the king of college football for a long time, and we hate the kings. We hate the people that are on top. I just think that the current playoff format keeps with the tradition of college football, because we live and die with every Saturday. I don't want a playoff system where you can lose and it doesn't matter. It matters every Saturday in college football, and I like that.
Yeah, but I want a system where you can win and it matters. So I don't have a problem with an all-SEC college football championship game. What I have a problem with is UCF going undefeated and getting no chance to prove their worth in a playoff format. I don't think I have the tape, so you don't have to worry, but I would guess that you and I hung out this past fall on this show and others talking about who the Final Four should be. And at some point, if UCF came up, I would guess you would have said to me, but they are not going to beat one of these top teams. They're not one of the 4 best teams. But at one time, Auburn was. At one time, Auburn got all that credit. And UCF went in and beat Auburn. To me, thus proving they can beat the big boys when given the chance. And all I'm arguing for is give them a chance. If it takes 8 to give them a chance, then make it 8.
Well, I think you make a good point. I think UCF is a very good football team, and on any given Saturday, they can beat the big boys. The problem with UCF is I don't think that they could do it every single Saturday in one of the Power 5 conferences. Now, when you put them in a standalone game and you give them a month, they look just as good and as talented as Auburn did yesterday. But I think a lot of people, including myself, would love to see them in the rigors and the meat grinder of one of the Power 5 conferences, because I think where the issue of depth comes in at, I think that's where they would be lacking. But I'll give you all the credit in the world, because I think you've said that. They looked really better than Auburn, and it had nothing to do with motivation. It had nothing to do with Auburn not being ready. They just beat Auburn on the field yesterday.
Yeah, and look, honestly, I value your opinion. So when I say that, it's completely arrogant to say it's subjective. I get it what you're saying. By the way, the one reason college football is great is because of the debate. Every week, all week long. I'm from Texas. I know what it's like to have that debate about who's the best team, who's the best conference, who's the best quarterback. That's one of the great aspects of college football. But in the end, you can't have a system where someone is incapable of proving their worth. And when UCF goes in and beats Auburn, I think they've proven they deserve a chance. They haven't proved they won the national championship by being undefeated, but they prove They deserve a chance. Anyway.
I think they'll get an opportunity, but what they're going to have to do going forward is they're going to have to schedule better. Because right now, today, hindsight is 20/20. We're saying, see, I told you they were better. Well, guess what? If they had scheduled Auburn or one of the big boys in game 1 or 2 this year, then we would have been having this conversation after game 1 or 2, and I guarantee you they would have gotten the attention that they deserved.
Let me ask you a hypothetical. Let's say that Oklahoma ends up winning that game last night against Georgia.
Gotcha.
What would happen in that Oklahoma-Alabama matchup? Would Oklahoma's offense look like it did against Georgia, or would Alabama's defense look like it did against Clemson?
I think Alabama's defense. See, I'm a defense guy, Will. I honestly, I've been burned a great offense with the Peyton Manning Broncos against the Seattle Seahawks, and I vowed never to choose great offense again. So I'm a defensive guy. That defense is tough to beat, and Nick Saban has proven if your quarterback can't beat multiple and can't make plays in the passing game and the running game, then you have no chance to beat them, and I think that was showed again last night.
What happened in the second half to Oklahoma? What adjustment did Georgia make? How did it look like two completely different games from one half to the next?
In the first half, Baker Mayfield was very comfortable. In the second half, as soon as the half started, Baker Mayfield became uncomfortable. Kirby Smart, Mel Tucker started bringing linebackers in the A-gap, making Baker Mayfield do different things. He started seeing ghosts a little bit, and that was surprising because Baker is a veteran quarterback. He's been there, done that. He's seen it all. They made Baker uncomfortable. They got to him. He took several hits in the second half. He took a couple sacks in the second half, and I think that changed the entire game. And, Will, when you deal with 18 and 19-year-old kids, momentum is a dangerous thing, especially when it's going against you, but more importantly when it's going for you. And when Georgia scored 21 straight points, I thought the momentum was with them, and Oklahoma let them back in the game. Like, Oklahoma had a 17-point lead and the ball, and they had a chance to finish the game away. And then I thought in overtime, Will, Oklahoma has an opportunity with the ball to win the game. And Lincoln Riley ran the ball every single play. Mm-hmm. Was it a case of him seeing something against the Georgia defense, or was it a case of Lincoln Riley getting conservative with an opportunity to win a game to go play for a national championship? I would choose the latter. I think Lincoln Riley got conservative in overtime.
I totally agree. I put this more on Lincoln Riley than I do on Baker Mayfield. The third quarter, you're right. Third quarter, Georgia just owned it. But in the fourth quarter, Oklahoma was in the game. And Lincoln Riley looked like he needed a trick play to get 3 yards. That seemed to be what he thought.
Right.
So let me ask you this. If you take that Georgia-Alabama game, we're going to include Baker Mayfield in this. Which of these guys do you feel most comfortable is going to be a solid pro in the NFL? Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, Baker Mayfield. Let's just leave it at those three. I'd love to include the two linebackers, Roquan Smith and Oklahoma's linebacker as well, which I can't pronounce his last name right now. But
yeah, I'm not even going to try to either. I would say Sony Michel, because I think Sony Michel, the versatility he brings, he's a three-down back that can catch the football. He's explosive. He's big enough. He's tough enough. A lot of people out there are saying, what about Baker? What about Baker? Here's the reason I don't trust Baker Mayfield, because he has just enough Johnny Manziel in him that I can't trust it. Now, he's better than Johnny. He's a much better passer than Johnny, but he's got just enough Johnny in him that I can't trust him. And I never trusted Johnny Manziel.
Where would you be comfortable taking Baker?
Mid-second, early third. I would not spend a first-round pick on Baker Mayfield. I am not of the belief that 5'11", 6-foot quarterbacks are going to win you championships, because Russell Wilson and Drew Brees are the anomaly, not the norm. So, therefore, I need a quarterback that I think he doesn't have to have all the physical tools, but he has to have enough physical tools that I can build around.
Totally agree. Wilson and Brees are the exception that proves the rule. All right, man. Look forward to having you in here when you're in the studio. Look forward to having you part of this show.
Anytime, my man. Congrats, man, and keep tearing the airwaves up, buddy.
All right, thanks, man. That's ESPN College Football Analyst Booger McFarland, the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. All right, coming up, still ahead, people are still mad at me about what? About Baker Mayfield being about top 10? I should ask Booger. Is he a top 10 college football player of all time? I mean, he is, clearly. If he's not, I mean, what'd I do? Miss it by 1 or 2? How's that insane? It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hey there, I'm a glue stick, so I have one job. I glue kid stuff. So sorry for being jealous of Geico, who does a ton more, like give you 24/7 access to thousands of licensed agents. And Geico has been around for over 75 years and has a 97% customer satisfaction rating. While I've just got mediocre adhesive skills, Geico also has an award-winning mobile app. Uh-oh, arts and crafts time. No eating the glue stick, Miss Lydia.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. You can find us on TV on ESPN News. And give us a call. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Malcolm in New Orleans. You don't like my list of 10? Is that what I hear?
Hey, Will, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Malcolm. So I say Baker Mayfield's in the top 10 college football players of all time. And if he's not, I mean, what? Can I have a cushion of 2 or 3? Because they're safely in the top 12 or 13.
When you said that, I almost drove my truck into one of these buildings on Bourbon Street just now.
Out of anger or out of shock?
Out of shock.
Okay.
And I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm the black sheep of my family, so I try to let you slide a little bit. But with that one, I was like, man, Will tripping today.
All right, well, who am I missing, man? I rattled off about 10, 11 names, and I think Baker's right there in the debatable range with 9, 10, 11, right in there.
You named off like Woodson, Tebow, Young, Sanders, Jackson. You forgot about Reggie Bush.
I did forget about Reggie Bush. Does it matter that he's been wiped clean from
Reggie Bush mattered.
Well, but all his records wiped clean. USC's victories wiped clean. Do we still?
Yeah, no, he still did it though.
Okay, all right. You're right. Reggie Bush is up there. You're right.
Remember your colleague Desmond Howard?
Yes. No, I'm not putting Desmond above Baker. I'm sorry. I'm not doing it.
What about Adrian Peterson?
Adrian's great. Look, here are the running backs I have ahead of him. I have Bo Jackson, Herschel Walker, Barry Sanders, probably Ricky Williams. And if you give me Adrian Peterson as well, we have to come up against the idea that quarterbacks are just inherently more valuable than running backs. They just touch the ball more. They distribute the ball. They're more impactful on the outcome of the game. I mean, and Baker...
Even with the quarterback, you forgot about the Mannings. You forgot about Peyton.
Oh, Peyton's a great pro quarterback. Peyton was a good college quarterback, but he was not Baker Mayfield in college. He was not. Baker completed 70% of his passes 2 years in a row. Over 40 touchdowns, under 10 interceptions 2 years in a row. Baker walked on to Texas Tech, won the starting job. Baker walked on to the University of Oklahoma, won the starting job. Both times against 5-star quarterbacks. By the way, when he beat out everyone at Texas Tech, do you know who I'm talking about? I'm talking about Davis Webb, the guy the New York Giants are looking at, probably not for very long, but looking at as somebody who could be the quarterback of their future. I'm also talking about Pat Mahomes, who is the quarterback of the future for the Kansas City Chiefs. These are the guys that Baker started over when he walked on to Texas Tech.
You would even put him over, like, I know you said the quarterback's more valuable, but, like, say, for instance, what Maurice Claret did that 1 year in college. It was phenomenal, his true freshman year. I mean, it didn't pan out after that, but if he would have played the rest of those years, him and Ron Dane and stuff like that, it would have been ridiculous.
I would put him over Maurice Claret. Yes, thanks for the call, Malcolm. Appreciate it. Keep your car safely between the yellow lines. Look, here's the funny thing. I think Baker Mayfield is a phenomenal college football player. That doesn't mean I think he's going to be this phenomenal NFL quarterback. So, like, Peyton Manning's reverse engineering it. You're looking at who Peyton Manning ended up being and taking it back and pretending like that's the guy he was at the University of Tennessee. He was a great prospect at the University of Tennessee. He was a good quarterback. And Baker Mayfield's the reverse. Listen, Trevor Maddich, though, thinks Baker's going to be this, what is, number one? He thinks number one top quarterback? Listen.
I would take Baker Mayfield first of the quarterbacks that are available right now. Now, that's pending interviews.
You're talking about against Rosen and
Josh
Allen.
Rosen,
Yeah.
Josh Allen, Sam Darnold if he comes out, all these folks. And I would need interviews. There's a lot of work left to be done. I want to talk to the guy. I want to understand his work ethic. I want to understand a lot about him. But when you talk about that accuracy, Trey, that's the first thing that I see. I mean, he runs around doing college-y things, Baker Mayfield. He makes people miss. He's exciting. He extends plays. It's really fun. And we're so thrilled watching that as just fans that what gets lost is the fact that then he threw the ball off his back foot, drifting to the side, deep down the field, and it was a pinpoint accurate pass.
Here's the thing. I actually agree with what Booger McFarland says. ESPN Radio, by the way, is presented by Progressive Insurance, and you can hit me up at Will Cain on the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. I agree with what Booger had to say. Drew Brees and Russell Wilson, those are the two names you constantly hear invoked when it comes to Baker Mayfield. Those guys are the exception. Under 5 feet, run around, make a play in the case of Russell Wilson, find lanes between the offensive linemen with Drew Brees. Those guys are the exception. So to say you're going to take Baker Mayfield based upon the success of those guys, and I understand that's not what Matic was saying there, but if you start invoking those guys as the reason you can feel comfortable taking Baker Mayfield, I just think you're playing by the exception. There's a reason most quarterbacks are over 6 foot, whatever it may be, 3, 4. There's a reason they all have cannons for arms. I'm not saying Baker Mayfield can't be a great pro, but the odds are, if you're playing the odds, you got to take these other 3 guys before him. Rosen, Darnold, Allen. While we're at it, Cerruti, you heard the debate with Booger. This UCF beating Alabama thing, man, to me, that's the closing argument on the 8-team playoff debate.
Beating Auburn, by the way.
What'd I say?
Alabama. If they beat Alabama, then I think they have a really good case to be national champions, but they did not.
Well, Auburn did beat Alabama.
So, what's that? The transitive property? What do we got?
That's what we do in college football, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's No, but this is the closing argument in the 8-team college playoff debate. If UCF can beat Auburn, and I guarantee you all season long, people would have said, no, they can't. They're beating a cream puff schedule. Yes, they're a nice team. They can't hang with the Power 5 conferences. They can't beat teams like Auburn, like Georgia, like Alabama, like Oklahoma. But then they did. And at the very least, what that proves to me is they deserve a shot. They deserve a shot to prove their worth.
How much differently would you feel if there was an 8-team playoff and UCF got absolutely smashed in one of those playoff games?
You mean what I then think that the 8-team playoff?
Yeah. Would you say, oh, you know what? We should make this more exclusive. 4 was always the better number, better games. Because I feel like if that had happened and UCF had gotten their wish and gotten blown out, I'm not saying they would have. Maybe they would have won it all. But I just feel like we're too much in the now right now. Like, yes, they beat a good Auburn team. Do I think they're one of the 4 best teams in the country? No way. Therefore, they shouldn't have been in the playoff, which they weren't. And I'm not sure that they're just not up to the level of talent of these other teams. I think Booger's point about them going through, if they had to play an SEC conference schedule, there's no way they go undefeated. There's zero chance.
I don't think so either.
Or even any of the Power 5 conferences.
I don't think so either.
So they kind of went undefeated because they had a little bit of an easy road, and they got up for one big game.
I agree. But I think the difference between you and me and the difference between me and Booger is I don't think my opinion should carry the day. I don't think just because I think it, therefore it should be it. Like, I'm allowed to think it, and I'm allowed to argue it, and I'm allowed to try to persuade for it, but ultimately sports is about what you can prove on the field. And an 8-team playoff allows us to say, if you earn your way to a chance, you can have that chance. 5 Power 5 champions, 1 Group of 5 standout, and 2 wild cards. It would not ruin the regular season. You would have a similar debate, which Booger and I both value and think is one of the great things about college football. You'd still have that debate week in and week out. Who's 7? Who's 8? Who's 9? Who's 10? Who's in? Who's out? You'd have all that on a week-to-week basis. Conference championships would matter. And you'd open it up to the idea that, number 1, you could lose a game, like Georgia, like Alabama, and get in as a wild card. Number 2, you could earn your way as a Power 5 guy, as a Group of 5 guy, into the playoff. And then if they get crushed, Cerruti, so they get crushed. And you were right all along. But it doesn't mean the playoff was wrong. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Coming up, I've got 2 teams. They've got 2 teams in the title game. But the SEC still, despite that fact, I think we can say is a little overrated. Also, why do you cheer for each other? It's weird. It's the Will Cain Show on the ESPN Radio and ESPN app. That's a weird thing to even say. SEC fans. I'm a big fan of this non-governmental entity that's a coalition of teams and public universities. What is that? SEC, chanting SEC. That's my question for you. 888-729-3776. Why do you root for each other? Why do you root for the conference? I mean, you almost suckered me in last night. At some point, I'm like, am I starting to root for Oklahoma? I mean, good Lord, help me if I root for Oklahoma. I mean, hook them all day long. I'm not rooting for Oklahoma. But there for a minute, I'm like, am I rooting for Oklahoma? Why am I doing that? Because I'm getting suckered into this conferences matter. I'm rooting for my conference so I can win a debate, maybe? Is that what it is? I don't know. Give me a call. 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. All right, so we were just talking about this, Rudy, 18 playoff. So where were you? You were yay? You were nay?
I'm open to it, but I just don't necessarily think that UCF proves that we should make it an 18 playoff. I don't think that necessarily proves it.
UCF is definitive proof that we should have an 18 playoff. By the way, here's Danny White. Not that Danny White, Bubba. Not our Danny White, Bubba. Not the Dallas Cowboys Danny White. This is UCF AD Danny White. Is this when he's on with Le Batard, or was this after the game? Which is this? This is with Le Batard. This is what he had to say about UCF's year.
We just got a mature group of really talented young men that played 13 games and won them all. And I think they deserve to be considered national champions. We're really proud of them.
Oh, he's claiming the national. I heard Le Batard doing this. They're awarding them a national championship, right? They're awarding UCF a national championship? Listen to this.
I am trying to change the process for 2018 and beyond. I think that the playoffs should expand. We need at least 8 teams. I think we need to go back to the rankings that we had in the BCS era. In years in the BCS era where schools like us had 0 or 1 losses, they were ranked like in the top 5. And all of a sudden the rankings have changed. And I think that there's a bias against schools outside of what we currently call the Power 5. But we feel strongly we're in a Power 6 conference. Our league is not respected enough. There's some really tough football in our league. You know, we played teams as good or better than Auburn in our own conference.
No, I agree with you. South Florida is just as good as Auburn. Just as good.
Okay, there's a lot there that's good. There's a lot there that's bad. First of all, this Danny White's better than the previous Danny White, not the Dallas Cowboys Danny White, the one where he claims a national championship. I'm sorry, Danny. You don't get to claim a national championship. I mean, you can claim it. You can claim anything you want. Watch me. I'm going to be doing it over the next several months, almost every day. You can claim whatever you want, but you're not national champions. But you do deserve a shot. That's what you deserve. I mean, it's America, isn't it? You deserve a chance. You went 12-0. You're not a Power 6 conference. It's not. You're not. AAC, not a Power 6 conference. I don't try to sell that line of argument on this, that we need to expand it from Power 5 to Power 6. You're just expanding it for yourself then. All you're doing is selfishly getting your crew, your conference into the bubble. The point is, don't have the bubble, or at least burst it to some extent. If a team goes undefeated like UCF, they get in an 18 playoff. That's an 18 playoff is a dang near cure-all. All 5 Power Conference champions in. 2 wild cards in. And 1 group of 5 earnee, in this case UCF, at times Boise State, in. Play it out. Ruins nothing. Every game counts. Every weekend counts. And we get 1 extra weekend of awesome games.
That's not true, though, because then Ohio State in this scenario would have gotten in the playoff this year, an 18 playoff, and they didn't deserve probably to be in a 14 playoff. They didn't deserve it. So not all the games matter.
Yeah, they don't cease to matter. Just because why would adding, it would be in this case 4 teams, 3 from the Power 5, why would that make these games not matter?
That would make the Oklahoma-Ohio State kickoff in week 1, that game doesn't matter to either of those teams.
You would need that schedule to get one of the 2 wild cards if you don't earn or win your conference championship. If what scheduling games like Ohio State, Oklahoma does is gives you the resume to win the wild card debate, just like we have it now. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. You can get on this debate as well and tweet the show through the 1AirFlowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain. Starting off the year with a little romance is easy at 1AirFlowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. So here's the question that I'm asking. Why do you root for each other, SEC? Why do you root for this entity called the SEC and then root for each other? Like, these are your most hated rivals. I went to law school in Texas. I hate Oklahoma. OU does the downward horns like everyone does. Arkansas and anybody without their own hand signal. They just do that. I hate Oklahoma. But I started at times last night going, am I pulling for Baker Mayfield? And it's because you SEC fans have made it so once we get to a certain point in the season, it's like we're all the same. And honestly, it's a little sad. It's a little sad. It's like Texas A&M, you're trading on Alabama's reputation. Like, what have you done to chant SEC, Texas A&M? Antonio in Georgia.
Hey, Will, how you doing?
I'm good. What's up?
Nothing much, man. Just got a quick answer for your question. Well, we root for each other because we're the best. And like you said, once we get to a certain point in the season, we understand that the collective success of the conference brings a lot of chagrin to
what team do you root for? Antonio, who's your team? Who's your team, Antonio?
I'm from Atlanta,
okay.
So Georgia by default.
Quickly, who's your team?
Georgia by default.
Okay, so you root for Auburn? That's a big rival, Georgia-Auburn. So you would root for Auburn? Did you root for Auburn against UCF?
Not if we're playing against Auburn, absolutely not.
Did you root for Auburn against UCF?
No, I actually did want to see UCF go undefeated.
All right, Antonio. It's like kissing your cousin, I guess. You guys are into that. Coming up, Peter Burns of the SEC Network defends the conference in the next hour. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app.
Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. Mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
The Will Cain Show was presented by Progressive Insurance. You can hit me up on the 100flowers.com Twitter feed. That's at Will Cain. Give us a call at any time. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Like Justin in Virginia, we're talking about why does the SEC root for itself? Why do teams in the SEC seemingly root for each other and then carry that beyond to even just rooting for the conference's acronym itself, chanting SEC, SEC, SEC at the games? It doesn't make any sense to me. Apparently Justin runned off. 888-729-3776. I mean, it's a genuinely open question. I'm genuinely curious. Like, I went to Texas for law school. I don't know that I can't. I'm only hesitating because I think I might have for a moment caught myself like, are you rooting for Oklahoma right now? Are you rooting for Baker against Georgia? And then I quickly checked myself and got back and enjoyed the fact that they blew a 17-point lead and again missed out on a national title. But I don't understand why Texas A&M, for example, would take pride in Alabama's success. I don't understand why Mississippi would take pride in Georgia's success. I don't understand why you think their earned reputation somehow bleeds over into yours. Lee in Atlanta, why do you think it's okay for the SEC to cheer for itself?
Well, we're all family. My best friend is an LSU fan. If LSU loses, he's sad. My son is an Alabama fan. I'm a Georgia fan. And the teams themselves are connected. I mean, Kirby Smart obviously was with Alabama for 7 years. You can go back in history. Pat Dye went to Georgia, and Vince Dooley went to Auburn. I mean, we're just all connected.
Okay, but that doesn't make you – I mean, I don't know that that's that unique. I'm from Texas, okay? I have a stepsister who went to TCU. I have a stepsister that went to Baylor. I have in-laws that went to Texas Tech. I have another sister that went to Oklahoma. But I went to Texas. And I don't root for their teams. And I enjoy trash talking when their teams lose. Like, say, last night. That's what rivalry is. That's what the point of battling each other all season long, trying to bludgeon each other, and having what is a heated, sometimes hated rivalry is. I just don't understand how you flip on a dime and then go SEC at the end.
Well, it's that old rule that you can talk about my dad or my mom I can talk about my dad or my mom, but you can't talk about my dad or my mom.
But you're the one talking the worst about them the whole time. There aren't Ohio State fans. What'd you say your team was? I can't remember.
Georgia.
Georgia. Okay. You're Auburn, one of your biggest rivals, right? Oldest rivalry in college football.
Sure.
There aren't Ohio State fans talking bad about Auburn. It's you who's talking bad about Auburn. It's Georgia fans who bad talk Auburn all year long.
Yeah, but that's family.
Okay.
I can talk bad about my family, but you can't.
Okay. Well, I'm going to. I am right now. Thanks for the call, Lee. Justin in Virginia. You're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, what's going on, Will?
What's up, Justin?
I'm with you on this 100%. I think it's dumb, and I have no clue why people are connecting these SEC schools. I'm an Orioles fan, and you won't see me rooting for the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Blue Jays or any of them. I'm an Orioles fan. That's who I'm a fan of. I'm not a fan of the AL East.
Right. Can you imagine chanting AL East, AL East?
Exactly. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Well, we play a tougher schedule. We all play these same teams more times. I mean, Boston and New York have to play each other, so if they're by proxy, we're both better.
Exactly. I'm with you, Will.
All right, thanks, Justin. Here's the thing, Srudy. I actually see how someone gets suckered into this. And Lee's argument that they're all family is probably true. I mean, when you do have family that's gone to every school, like I said I have in Texas, you do start going, should I root for this school for Marley? Should I do this for Mary Kate? I ultimately arrive at no. But I think the way you end up here is because you want to win bar debates. Because you want to say, well, yeah, Texas A&M isn't playing too well. Well, yeah, Arkansas is down, but we're in the SEC and we play the toughest schedule and we play this murderer's row of opponents. That's why they end up chanting SEC.
Yeah, it's 100% that. They had a really, really great run. And I think the rest of college football has sort of caught up to them, but they want to still keep telling everyone that, hey, it means more here, which, by the way, I hate that slogan. It means more. But, like, I get that they are prideful and, like, hey, we're the SEC and we're the most, bad bleep conference there is. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like you're just embarrassing yourself if you are rooting for another team at any point.
Well, I'm not trying to dogpile this, but I said this a minute ago. It's also kind of sad because the whole SEC is right now, you've got 2.5 teams that are holding up the reputation. You got Alabama, who's holding the most weight on any kind of SEC reputation. You've got Georgia, who stepped up and now is as well. And Auburn carries some weight for the SEC. They've won national championships and they step up from time to time. But outside of that, what you're looking at is teams like Missouri, Arkansas, even LSU, trading on the reputation of Alabama, Georgia, and Auburn, claiming dominance because of those teams' dominance.
Like, they don't get a piece of that trophy.
Right.
Like, hey, congrats. You every year get to get beat by Alabama. That's what you get for being in the SEC. Like, congrats.
Right.
I also don't understand, like, the SEC can be down, which the SEC was down this year. Like, other than Georgia, the East was a trash conference. Am I wrong? Like, Florida was down.
Yeah, East was
I mean, it was just Tennessee's obviously was an absolute mess. And even like the West, yeah. So you had a couple teams that we had probably 4 teams if you include Mississippi State that were good ranked teams. The SEC is usually way better than that. So for me to say the SEC was down this year and you to throw back in my face that they have 2 teams in the championship game. Yeah, both of those things can be true. They can have 2 teams in the championship game and they can be down as a conference.
Absolutely.
And I have a problem with all of these SEC proponents who are basically propping them up and being like, look at how stupid were you for calling the SEC down. Both things can be true. Why can nobody see that?
Yeah, because they've got both teams in the national championship game. They think that's the end of the argument.
That's not a trump card.
It's not, because no one's claiming that Georgia and Alabama aren't awesome.
Like, the Big Ten was probably a better conference than the SEC was this year, but they didn't have one of the best 4 teams, and they didn't have one of the best 4 teams, but they were deeper. It's a different argument.
The Big Ten was a better conference than the SEC, but the SEC had the 2 best teams out of all of it. And we pointed to the bowl record a minute ago. Going into yesterday, the SEC was 2-5. The Big 12 was 5-2. And the Big 10 was 7-0. At the end of the day yesterday, Michigan didn't carry its part of the burden. Michigan put the only blemish on the Big 10's record. And the SEC ended up 4-5, while the Big 12 ended up 5-3. I just don't think that the SEC can claim this dominance. I don't think the SEC can claim this preeminence. Alabama can claim it. Georgia can claim it.
Now they can.
Yeah, but they can.
1 year, they can claim it. It's all about Alabama. All these teams are riding Alabama's coattails. That's what this is about.
You're right. Because the truth of the matter is that Oklahoma-Georgia game did more to take away from the SEC's reputation for me than to add to it. To see Oklahoma cut a Georgia defense up for 540 yards and 48 points did more to hurt the SEC than help the SEC. That created more SEC heretics than it did SEC disciples.
Can you imagine, and when this is going to happen, when Alabama wins a 13-10 national championship game in just a boring offensive line, defensive line game, they're going to get crushed, and people are going to be mad, and the SEC fans are then going to get in their bunker, and they're going to defend their point about why their football is better than everybody else's football. But at the end of the day, that's not what people want to see. People want to see the best quarterback play against Alabama's defense, and that's not what we got this year.
We almost got it. You have a bone to pick with somebody, not me.
It's not a specific person, but he's one of the people.
Who's that?
Peter Burns, coming up next. He's a SEC Network host, great guy. I like him a lot.
You got him on the phone?
We got him on the phone coming up next.
All right. SEC defender.
I have some questions because he had some questionable tweets last night, throwing some SEC bashers, like throwing some heat at them. And I want to throw the stuff we just threw at, we talked with ourselves at him, because I just don't think it makes sense when you say that the conference wasn't down. It was down.
All right, the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and more at Progressive.com. So coming up, there you go. Peter Burns, he's going to come on. He's going to take on Steven Cerruti and defend the SEC. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code Ryan to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. Mybookie.ag, promo code Ryan, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. MyBookie.ag.
Breaking news here. Cincinnati Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis has signed a 2-year contract extension running through 2019. Was that where you thought I was going to go with that?
I thought he was gone. I thought he was leaving.
I thought he said planned. So too.
Like, he just can't. It's like the girl he can't leave.
I thought it was sounded like his decision too.
They're kind of perfect for each other. They're mediocrity at its finest. They're both cool with being 8-8, no playoff wins. Just carry on being you.
I've been a little bit of a Marvin Lewis defender. I'm gonna get into that. Let's do that. Let's do that at the bottom of the hour at 5:30. But first, let's get back to this. First of all, you've been insulting all of SEC Nation for basically 2.5 hours, Cerruti. It's been embarrassing. It's been a rough start to my first show. You've alienated not only a big part of the country, but a big part of my hardcore fan base, the South, by saying it's ridiculous that these SEC teams somehow end up rooting for each other. As Lee in Atlanta told us, we're all family, man. Georgia, I root for Auburn. Sometimes I root for Mississippi State. It's all for the better good, for the collective good. I got a tweet during the commercial break. Friend of the show, I'd like to say friend of mine, Charles Barkley, listening. He says, I'm listening to the show. I'm Auburn, and I hate everyone else, LOL. Charles Barkley, not rooting for Georgia. Charles Barkley, not rooting for Alabama. Yes. Charles, open invitation. You don't have to text. You can just call. 888-729-3776. 888-SAY-ESPN. Open door policy with you, Chuck. I've never met Peter, but I'm excited. So maybe I'll give Peter like a all-access pass as well. We'll see how this goes. But you're going to pick a fight with him, Cerruti. So SEC Network host Peter Burns on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. What's up, Peter?
Do I get like the bracelet, like when the bouncer looks at I don't have to get on like the table service. I can just like wink at him and just be like, yeah, Will said I'm good. So
yes.
I just go behind, like in front of the line. I'm good with that, man. Hey, listening to the show, you're hitting the ground running, except for your anti-SEC takes. I'm loving what I'm hearing so far.
Well, listen, man. Thank you, by the way. It's not I don't feel like it's an anti-SEC take. It's only an anti-SEC take when you turn it into some kind of like communal, I guess we could even call it communist thing. We're all in this thing together. I respect you guys' individuality. I respect Alabama's hate of Auburn and vice versa. I don't understand this kumbaya stuff at the end of the season.
You know, it's so funny because of this whole situation. I got like after last night, I picked up my phone this morning and I had about 30 texts from stations like, hey, can you come on and talk about if the SEC is overrated? As if I need to apologize for the conference winning, 8 out of the last 11 championships and 9 out of the 12. Like, that's what I love about you. You said it at the opening of your show today. You're like, I'm not going to apologize at all. Like, I'm going to tell you the truth, and the truth hurts. And the SEC has been the most dominant football conference into the last decade. That has not changed.
How much of that has been Alabama, though, Peter? How much of that is Alabama?
Especially a lot of it recently. And I can't sit here in good faith and play the company card. Listen, I'm the anchor for the SEC Network. My company card would be for me to say, well, it wasn't a down year for the SEC. Hell yeah, it was. It was a down year for the SEC, and this year is even a lot better than it was last year, where the SEC had Alabama and it was everybody else. But guess what? The SEC's, quote, down year is having an all-SEC national championship game. I mean, this is what the level is so high and the expectations are so high for teams in this conference. Well, it's crazy. It's not like in other schools. And listen, I traveled across the country. I used to live in Texas. I used to do radio in Denver. I've seen it all across, right? For schools, there is a grade level. I give this a C+, a B- season. In the SEC, for the majority of the schools, it's pass or fail. Did you win a national championship or no?
Yeah. But the problem is the vast majority get Fs. Hold on now. I don't want to dominate this because Cerruti has been chomping at the bit to get you. So as much as I want to debate you, let Cerruti get in here.
I love it. I love it. Just okay. Here it is. I'm going to be the fall guy. All right, Cerruti, let's bring it.
So I was on Twitter last night, and you were very vocal. You were getting back at a lot of the people who were calling you out for saying the SEC was down. You had this tweet about there was the woman getting hit in the face on the slingshot with a watermelon saying, when your take is that the SEC is having a down year, which is a great tweet. Yeah. But as you just said, they did have a down year. And just because they got 2 teams in the national championship game doesn't mean that solves everything else. It doesn't mean that Tennessee or Florida or Ole Miss can now claim that they don't get a piece of the title.
Cerruti, I never thought I'd say this. You are right, and I was wrong. Here it is. I would much rather be the Big Ten right now and celebrate my 7-1 bowl record and have 0 teams in the college football playoff. Does this make you feel better, Cerruti? Like, is the Pac-12 right now that just went 1-7 and got embarrassed and didn't even have a team in the college football playoff? Are they saying, okay, it's fine. I'm glad that we weren't there and got embarrassed, right? So I should apologize for the SEC, having 2 teams in the final. I'm not going to do that. Why in the world would I go ahead and apologize for it? I'm not going to sit there and go, I would rather be a Big Ten apologist and say, gosh, we really were great, 7-1. How cool is that? What trophy are they bringing home? How many people are going to watch them?
But
the Big Ten has scored how many points in the last 3 college football playoffs, Cerruti? 0. They scored 0 this year because they weren't even one of the top 4 teams. They scored 0 the year before, and they scored 0 the year prior to that. 3 years in a row they had goose-egged. But I'm supposed to be happy for the Big Ten because, they went 7-1 in a bowl game.
Why does the entire conference get to celebrate this? Why does the entire conference get to celebrate that? They had 2 really good teams this year, and they probably might be the 1 and 2, best teams in the entire country. But are we just going to ignore the 12 other teams that had pretty much subpar years, other than maybe LSU and Mississippi State? We just ignore that? It doesn't matter?
Now, the reason why it, quote, just means more, right? I know it's laughable, but yes, because it does down here. And I mean, it's the fabric of the people. This is their professional franchises, right? Are these schools in Starkville, down in Gainesville, and Baton Rouge? They live, breathe, die by this pass-fail, or can you win a national championship or not? And the reason why they pull for every other school is because they want every other school to be top-ranked when their respective school beats them. That's what they want. And that's why you see when the score in the Superdome last night against Alabama Clemson, when they announced that Georgia had won, it was SEC chants. They love it.
Weird,
and
Peter.
It is family down here. It's tough to admit. It's just what it is.
See, the thing is, the only reason Big Ten apologists exist is because SEC homers exist. The only reason Big 12 debaters or arguers exist is in response to SEC. The thing that I think you're confusing is no one denies the dominance of Bama or Georgia or the greatness of any of the individual teams. What everybody denies is this weirdness of the affiliation of the collective group as a whole, which, by the way, you can talk about the dominance and up and down year. I think it's weird that you set aside historic hatreds and rivalries for this like kumbaya at the end. I'm not rooting for OU. I'm a UT alum. I'm not doing it. Not rooting for them.
And you mean to tell me as a UT guy, listen, I used to live in San Antonio for a long time. You mean to tell me as a UT guy, some part of you loved the fact that Oklahoma lost that game, right? And you know why? You wouldn't have cared if they lost a kind of a measly bowl game. You loved the fact that Oklahoma got to the pinnacle. They were right there. They had an opportunity to win a national championship, and then they lost. Didn't that feel good to you as a Longhorn fan?
Of course.
That's why. That's the SEC. That's what it is.
No, you root for each other. You don't get that
success. So when they win, it looks better for them.
You just said that.
Well, we are weird in the SEC. We're different, and I'm okay with that.
Okay, just real quick before we go, because I got to let you go. Oklahoma marching through Georgia's defense last night did put a little tarnish on the whole SEC thing, right?
Scoreboard? I just have to mic drop it right there. I mean, you're not going to give credit for Kirby Smart making adjustments at halftime?
Yeah, I do.
I mean, I think you have to give credit for that.
Stopped
they got
him at
punched in the
48
mouth. But at the end of the day, I don't see Oklahoma playing in the national championship.
No, you're right. Adjustments and kept him to 48 points. You're right. It was impressive.
Peter, are we looking at a 13-10 game here on Monday? Because that's going to bore everybody out. That's going to bore all
perhaps,
the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but that's the deal. And you might call it ugly. I might say that NFL GMs on draft day will look at and go, look at how many NFL guys are playing good defense. SEC is about stopping the run and running the ball, and that's why Georgia and Alabama are playing the national championship. Listen, I love Baker Mayfield. I love offense. I love points. But it's traditionally stopping the ball and running the ball wins you national championships, and that's what Alabama and Georgia do.
I love Minka Fitzpatrick. And I love you, Peter Burns. All Access Pass, granted. Bracelet. I want it to be one of those you wear days after you've left the club. What's that on your wrist? That's no big deal. I was in the Will Cain Club.
No big deal. No big deal. It's like going to a concert and wearing the shirt from the concert afterwards. Like, I hate that guy, but I'll do it for the Will Cain Show.
Ooh, that just made the that guy versus that guy debate. All right, Peter. Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
Later, boys.
The SEC was in the zone last night. In the Zone is brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone, AutoZone. Coming up, as you heard me say at the top of the segment, Marvin Lewis, not fired. Marvin Lewis, contract extension, 2 years with the Bengals. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hello, I'd like to deposit this to checking.
Fate is a fickle master.
What?
The future is uncertain.
Okay, and what's my account balance?
The horizon is cloudy. I see a long, treacherous voyage filled with great peril.
Look, can I just get a deposit slip or something?
A fortune bank teller. Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I see a yellow-eyed serpent and a low APR.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Give us a call. 888-CS-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. I'm not the only one, by the way, who's not allowed to live in a glass house. You think I said something wrong? You think I'm wrong? You think I'm an idiot? You think I'm insane? Whatever. Call. Let me know. But listen, Cerruti doesn't get to skate by either. I mean, Cerruti's over here firing it off at Peter Burns, who was great, by the way, and want to make him a friend of the show. You don't go unchecked either there, Cerruti.
All right, what do you got?
No, I'm just saying they don't have to call to just be upset with me. They can come get you too.
People are already tweeting at me. It's fine.
What are they saying to you?
We're just never going to see eye to eye on this thing. Because yes, I get that you have two teams in the championship game, but that doesn't mean your conference is awesome. That means you're top heavy. So these people are coming at me with saying, hey, well, I mean, we have two teams in the title game, so what else do you want us to do? Well, the rest of your conference could be a little bit better too. Like, you could be a little bit more well-rounded.
You know, when you take, here's the theory. Today's the first day of this show for me, right? And this is the first day of me doing solo radio into an indefinite future ever. And I've looked around. I've looked around at the guys who do this. And I've looked around at the guys who are successful at this solo. And I've thought, what's their personal life like? What's their family life like? What's their personality like outside of the booth? And I've had some reservations. When you are trapped in a room by yourself, talking to yourself, your personality can become distorted. It can become mutated by isolation, right? So few external influences. Everything in life this happens with. If you isolate something, its characteristics become enhanced. Nothing can influence it. No outside influences to change it, to adapt. And little quirks become big deformations. So I think this is where this SEC thing is headed. I get a lot of it. I get that you want to win a debate. I get that you want your schedule to look good because of the strength of your opponent. I get that you want to say we played XYZ and therefore we are XYZ. I get that you had family members go to this school or that school, and sometimes that can bleed allegiances. Again, I had family members go to TCU, Baylor, OU, Tech. Nobody went to A&M. No one. So let's make no mistakes about that. I get how all these little things can at times make you go, should I set aside this rivalry? Should I root for this inanimate, non-existent entity like a conference? But what's happened with the SEC, I think, is that like the radio host isolated in the booth with so few outside influences, there is no pro team, as Peter Burns said, or very few. This is everything. And all these little things that everybody else can identify with a little bit became deformations. Am I saying that word right? Deformations? It's not all family. You shouldn't set aside rivalries. You shouldn't set aside the importance of your program to win a conference debate. Even though I understand how there's little influences that might have wanted you to do that. That's how you get there. Hopefully that's not where I get at the end of this experiment as well. So as I said before the break, breaking news, Bengals head coach Marvin Lewis signs a 2-year contract extension running through 2019. Now this is a surprise because what was it, Srudy? Just a few weeks ago he said he was going to...
I thought he had like bigger and better things he was going to do. I heard some rumors about him maybe wanting to be a GM. I don't know. It just seems like their time. He's been there for so long, and there hasn't been a lot to show for it. They've had some good teams with no playoff wins.
No playoff wins. I think he's been to the playoffs 5 times in the past 7 years. I know that because I compared it against Jason Garrett, Bubba, who's been twice in 7 years. See, this is actually apropos. Jason Garrett versus Marvin Lewis. I've been a Marvin Lewis defender because life is about expectations. You're judged largely not on what you did, but what you were expected to do. This is why Jack Del Rio, to some extent, is unemployed today. This is why Jim Caldwell, to some extent, is unemployed today. Because the expectations for the coaches in those two jobs were greater than 9-7 with the Detroit Lions and failing to make the playoffs, and 6-10 with the Oakland Raiders. We saw a year ago what the Raiders could be. We saw 12-4. We saw what Derek Carr could be. And that regression pulled Del Rio so far short of his expectations, and of course, the shiny object that is John Gruden hanging out there cost him his job. Caldwell, not bad. I think, what is he? Caldwell's been there for 4 seasons, winning seasons 3 out of the 4, playoffs 2 out of the 4. It's not bad.
I think I saw somewhere, though, his stat, he was like 3-20 against good teams.
Yes, and he was.
So that's the thing. You beat up on the bad teams, but then you play someone good.
And he lost when opportunity presented itself. There were many times, not just in games to make the playoffs, but in playoff games.
Losses, yeah.
Yes, games, unforgivable sins like having 10 men on the field.
Well, they blew the game against the Cowboys a couple years ago when I was at that, when Golick flew me down to that game. Lions were winning at half.
Yes.
And the Cowboys came back and won in the second half.
Failing to beat the Bengals when a playoff spot is on the line. The point is Caldwell and Del Rio failed expectations. Marvin Lewis, I have to be honest with you, I don't know that he's failed expectations. What are the expectations for the Bengals with Dalton at quarterback? Make the playoffs? Is it really to advance very far in the playoffs?
Seems like it's just make a profit if you're the owner.
Do you, honestly, what do you think the ceiling is on Andy Dalton?
I think Andy Dalton, early in his career when he had a lot of weapons around him, he could distribute the ball to a bunch of different people, but when he has to do and be the main playmaker, and when you take away A.J. Green, I think he's kind of an average quarterback.
Yeah.
I think you can win with Andy Dalton. I just don't think he's going to win you anything by himself.
I think he can win 10 games. He can
win
with 11 games with a good team. He can make the playoffs. I don't think you're going to the AFC Championship game. I certainly don't think you're going to the Super Bowl. Could Marvin Lewis have done a little bit more with Andy Dalton? Yes. Could he have done a lot more? I don't think so.
I think I asked you this when that story broke late in the year about Marvin Lewis wanting to move on. I said, how bummed would you be if your team hired Marvin Lewis as a head coach? Well, how bummed are you right now if you're a Bengals fan and Marvin Lewis is now still your head coach?
Probably pretty bummed, just for no other reason. They just want change.
Yeah.
Just change. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests join me on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Coming up, 888-SAY-ESPN, your thoughts on Baker Mayfield, the SEC, and I got a little bit more breaking news from the NFL. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We were just talking about, before the break, Marvin Lewis has got a 2-year extension through 2019 from the Cincinnati Bengals. It was rumored he was going to join this long list of coaches who have already been let go. But nope. Cincinnati, Marvin Lewis is sticking around. Jason in Cincinnati, you're really happy about this, I heard?
Yeah, I am the least happy person in the world about this right now, Will. Everything that Stephen A. says on First Take is completely true. It's an absolute slap in the face that they let Marvin stay here. It is absolutely ridiculous. I hope there's a military coup in the Bengals front office that just ends the Marvin Lewis era, ends the Mike Brown era, and ends everything that's going on here.
Let me ask you this.
Happy the other day.
I think I'm setting myself up for you to have an easy answer to this question, but look, what are we at? I think we're like at 6 or 7 coaches already been fired. There aren't very many impressive names out there that you're just dying to get to come coach your team. So what name gets you excited to replace Marvin Lewis with?
Anything. I'll tell you
knew
what.
That was the answer I was setting myself up for.
Anything. I would take anything at this point. It's not like I want Ben McAdoo rolling up in Cincinnati's front office, but I'll tell you this. Anything would be a step in the right direction to clear house. It's been nothing but mediocrity down here. We were shopping the other day. I went to buy a Bengals polo, and the person in front of me that went to grab one said, "It's finally the end of the Marvin era." There's an exciting thing going on down here. And then Mike Brown he just stole it. He's like the Grinch.
Oh, man. Thanks for the call, Jason. You know, one of the things I really like to, honestly, this is going to seem like, what are you doing after you just slammed the SEC? I love to honor, like, the local fan base. The way they feel is the way that it should be listened to most of the time. Most of the time. Except for the University of Tennessee and Greg Schiano. That was a massive, fan base was at fault on that one. But most of the time, like, the feelings of the fan base, you got to hear it. They're plugged in. They know. They have their finger on the pulse, the emotion. I mean, from afar, in theory, I look at Marvin Lewis and I go, the man has, what do you expect him to do? It's Andy Dalton. How good are they supposed to be? He's made the playoffs 7 times. I know they haven't won any. 5 times, I'm sorry, in the last 7 years. But I understand Jason's frustration coming from Cincinnati. Nick in College Station, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Nick?
Hey, Will. Yeah, I just wanted to say the reason that the SEC, we all root for each other, it guarantees our success.
Okay, Nick, I'm already a little bit vomiting in my mouth with all this us and we coming from College Station
you
and
have
the SEC.
The Southwest Conference falling apart because of other teams' reticence to embrace their other member schools. You have the Pac-12, which is in mediocrity because no one's really rallying around one school. There's no hype around USC. And the Big 12 is about to implode on itself for much the same reason as the Southwest Conference. I mean, the SEC has been around nearly 100 years, and the only conference that can claim that is going to be the Big 10. I mean, even look at the Big East. They fell apart for much the same reason.
But
we
Nick,
embrace each other and come together because we all win.
You sound like the guy that finally got into the party. You've been trying and trying and trying, and now you're turning around yelling at everybody else how great the party is. I mean, it's a little hard to take from an A&M fan, and that's what I'm assuming you are calling from College Station, that you guys hated Texas so much you had to get away, and now you're ultimate SEC fans, Chet and SEC at a Georgia-Oklahoma game. It's a little hard to take from you guys. You can understand
we are a little jaded, going to be honest, but at the same time, it would have been nice if A&M was doing well and we'd have schools like Texas or Oklahoma State embracing us and cheering us on. Because if we win, guess what? The whole conference wins.
Your fight song talks about Texas. Your fight song talks about UT and hating UT.
What does that have to do with the SEC, Will?
Oh, well, now you have this great communal interest that you're with the SEC and you support each other, but for 100 years in the past, all you did was chant and write your fight songs about one other school you hate so much, but you're teaching us now a lesson about how great it is to come together.
I'm 20 years old. I wasn't around for that, Will.
You know, you still hate Texas. You don't even play them. Be honest.
I hate Texas because I didn't get an acceptance letter.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for listening to the show, man. Hey, speaking of, by the way, while I'm doing this thanks thing, let me do this for a sec, okay? I was listening to the end of the Stephen A. Smith show when he was talking about me and the launch of the Will Cain Show. And he was talking about how hard it is to be nice to me, but he's met my family and my mom and my wife and my kids. And I do want to say this, you know, when it comes to on-air people, I have 2 people that I want to thank for the place I've ended up at ESPN. I'm really excited to be hanging out with you guys for 3 hours a day. I'm really excited to be hanging out with everybody behind the glass and all the guests and all the calls that we're going to have. And when I said this is an us show and not a me show, I meant it. Like, I want to hang with you guys. And when I say you guys, I'm looking at Cerruti, I'm looking at Bubba, I'm looking at Smallman, but I'm also talking about you people listening on your car radios or on ESPN News or wherever you are, because this is our show, not my show. It's our show. And that's not just happy-feely talk. Like, I want you to call. I want you to be involved in the show. Just like Nick and his Hullabaloo Connect just did, I want you in on the show, even if we disagree. But there's two on-air guys that help make this happen for me, and I want to thank them. One of them is Stephen A. Smith, who I was just talking about. Stephen A.'s embrace of me on First Take, embrace despite the disagreement with me, his support for me has meant the world to me in my career, and I will be forever indebted for Stephen A. Smith's support. And the other guy is a guy that used to share 1 hour of this time slot with me and who shared months with all of us and years for many of you guys talking. That's Ryan Russillo. Both of those guys, Ryan supporting me on the radio side, Stephen A. on the TV side, who have helped me get where I am, and I'm so appreciative to both of them. Why are you guys all laughing?
I just want to know if you're going to cry again.
My voice was not shaking.
It was close.
Getting a little emotional
Michelle,
over there.
No,
Shedding some tears.
I did not that one day either. It just got a little shaky.
Got to get a duster in that new studio.
No, I appreciate everything Ryan and Stephen A. have done. I want to say that. Wouldn't be here without them. Great. Thanks for busting my... Ryan texted me, gave me advice right off the bat today. Don't look at Twitter. I said we had one more breaking news from the NFL, and that is this. Arizona Cardinals Carson Palmer, quarterback, retired. Leaving you with that. So Arians and Palmer out. But the Will Cain Show will be back again tomorrow. Cerruti, Smallman, Bubba, and me